Right, good morning, welcome. Yeah, Wednesday again, Wisdom's W Day, as we've always said, and we are going in different ways this morning with difference makers. How do we get to difference makers in every city around the world, in every suburb, in every area, every home? So it's all about difference makers and how we recruit them. So Rob, this morning I think we're going to kick off with you. You're seeing we've been using a sporting analogy in the little chat before we got online here. So as the fly half, your duty to kick off, and so let's get into the game.
Thanks, Ivan. I think the challenges for most organizations or most businesses are how to reach the said market. So while this might sound a little sort of mercenary and perhaps not in the ethos of difference makers, where Trevor's happy to have just every one new difference maker has the potential to introduce many other difference makers, and also spread, which ultimately is my objective, is to spread the wisdom that exists within the difference maker community. So the challenge is one to many. One can't go and knock on every door on the hope. Well, you can, but it's awfully tedious to knock on any doors to actually get people that are interested to tell the story a number of times as to what the intent of difference makers is. So how do we go about one to many? Well, firstly, you can get a few or find a few sponsors, difference makers who are already in their own right difference makers, and not to say that 4 of us aren't different makers, but perhaps we don't have the reputation that we would like to have somebody aligned with what we were trying to achieve. So with that in mind, I thought, well, who are the kind of people that we would like to attract to what we are trying to do? And lo and behold, one of them happens to be Elon Musk. Okay, so Elon Musk, with his pending purchase of Twitter, has shown an interest, and I take people at face value until proven otherwise, but has taken an interest in forming a community of people around healthy communication, decent communication, on using the Twitter platform. So, yep, that has some. I haven't created a checklist or anything like that, being, excuse me, analytical. I haven't created a checklist in terms of what are the criteria that we're actually looking for, if any. But he certainly would tick a lot of the boxes that I would put forward. There are others. I'm sure we could all put our minds to, but one of the others that comes to mind is a gentleman called J.W. Bertolotti. And J.W. Bertolotti has a something like difference makers, or just to use the term, called the path. And his path is to spread knowledge, most of which is around the writings and of the Greek and Roman philosophers. So a slightly different spin perhaps, but is it still current? And that's an interesting debate as to about whether what they had to say in those days is still applicable to these days. And having battled my way through, and still battling my way through, Spinoza's book on ethics, it's just, oh gosh, it's so complicated and so worth plowing my way through. anyway. So those are two ideas I thought of. If that appeals, other than plowing our way through the one by one, or, I mean, there are 4 of us already, so it's more than one by one. I mean, there are 4 of us times 1. And that's very expandable. That is takes a lot of time. And I'm 76. In the game away. Yeah, true. Time is of the essence, I think. What else did I have to think about? Yes, that would have some requirements, I think. We talked about attracting a person to get the message across on a freebie. So based on my history with you folk, in terms of how I got involved, was through you, through listening to what you had to say, through the discussions we had and stuff like that. So that's why I joined. So based on the factors why Rob joined, would other people join as well, would be on an invitation to me. An invitation where there is a session like this held, where collectively you, the founders, would be talking about their reasons for setting up DifferenceMaker, what they wanted, what they hoped the target market wanted. And the reason why, Elon Musk, we've invited you, is because we believe there's a lot of resonance with what you're doing and what we're doing, even if it's to serve as a Twitter as a platform for what we're trying to do. There may be somewhat of a clash in that because he's such a strong personality. One may want to avoid that. But to me, as I said, it's less about money and more about spreading the word. That sounds awfully religious, but spreading the wisdom. That sounds awfully religious too. So that's my thinking over the last week while I've been battling with not feeling so hunky. But I did that thinking last straight after we had the session and while we were having the session. So I'd like to hand this back to Lord Trevor Whimsy.
Right, so I'm quickly going to shovel the pass across to First Center, Lee Harrison, and ask her just to comment on Rob's points there. Anything that comes to mind, Lee?
So I think Rob's absolutely right, is that when we're talking about difference makers, we're immediately talking about people of influence. And if you have influence, that means that there's a circle of people that you are impacting in a positive way as a difference maker. And that those people then look to you as somebody that they esteem, that they value, that and therefore, you know, will have some influence in their lives in a way that would draw them into becoming part of the difference-making movement that we're talking about as wisdoms. Is how can we spark this wildfire that will create this positive swell that will ensure that people start to not just talk the language of being a difference maker, but actually action it. And that we see ourselves as the founders as being able to offer resources, being able to connect, you know, one person, one city to the next, so that there can be this co-collaboration and creation of fresh ideas of how we can further develop our communities and cities, environment, countries. And so, you know, I come back time and time again to the tipping point, because I think Malcolm Gladwell talked about these 3 types of people who are the influencers that create the tipping point. Exactly. Create the tipping point for big changes, big movements. And it's mavens. Mavens are people who collect and are the distributors of information. Then you have connectors, who are people that know people, network with people, draw people to themselves. And then the salespeople, who catch on to the idea of a maven, can relate and maybe have relationships with somebody who's a connector, and can take that concept and persuade others that this is amazing. So how do you identify those people? And they must, so we've got resources like LinkedIn, such and, who are coming to the surface when it comes to those 3 possibilities. So that's the one thought that I have, because what I want to say, what Rob is saying, is how can that we're not just knocking on individual doors, but we're trying to find those people who know people who know people who can then bring this together. And then my question is something that we at Wisdoms come back to time and time and time again, and that is, what's in it for them? Is we may have an idea, an agenda, a process of thinking that will that we believe is amazing. People will only buy into it if they see the value for themselves. So what we have to think about, and what we're looking for, maybe even to start off with or to grow in, is what's in it for the other person, that they say it's worth, it might even, the value might only start at $1 a month. That's the amount of value that they may be seeing, but they are, hopefully what you're seeing with that $1 a month is potential, which is what Rob is saying, is he sees the potential. So you put in the seed. I mean, that's $1, that's a seed, right? That's all you're doing, is you're planting a seed. Then, but that seed is potential, because in that seed is a forest. We know that. And so it's about finding the people who are willing to plant that seed, plant the seed, plant the seed, plant the seed. But even planting that seed is, I know that by planting the seed, what's in it for me is, okay, this might be fast growing. I'll be able to sit under the shade of this tree. Maybe it's slow growing. And therefore, what's in it for me? My family, my family's family will sit under the shade of this tree. So that's I think the message that we've got to get through.
Okay, now I've got the ball again. A little grubber kick through, and the wingy's going to run down the touchline and pick up the ball and run with it. Comment on those 2. Fantastic inputs here, Ivan.
Was that a grubber kick? Or was that a hospital pass? I think that. All right. Yeah, for those of you who don't know what rugby is, well, yeah, you'll have to catch up with us on that at some other point. But we believe in this country anyway. It's a great sport, and sport is what we love. And I think this is all about sport in many different ways, isn't it? Everybody in the team needs to be part of a team, and I think a team is what brings us together. And whether you the Elon Musks of the world, or whether you the water boy or girl or person, if you want to be PC about it, I suppose, you play an important role, and I think it would be fantastic to have have the Elon Musks of the world being part of this. But even if they are, it doesn't exclude you, it doesn't exclude me. As an individual in your home, with your family, in your streets, you can make a difference at that level, and you do make a difference at that level. And I think that's what's really important. And for us, it's about having people across the spectrum of influences, as Lee was talking about, being able to have some level of influence, and we all do. Believe it or not, somebody's looking at you as a role model, and as that role model, you are influencing them either intentionally or unintentionally. So that's what the Difference Maker is all about. It's about recognizing the fact that you are a role model to somebody. And so what kind of example are you setting for that somebody, for that individual who looks up to you, who looks to you for guidance, who looks to you for inspiration, who looks to you for wisdom? That's how it connects. And as Lee and Rob were chatting, I thought about the 6 degrees of separation. We're only 6 people away from connecting to Elon Musk, Rob. We just got to find those 5 people in between you and him, and we connected. And that's the same for everybody on this planet. Find the next person who you can connect to, and that person will connect to the next person. And ultimately, we will have difference makers in every city and every town and every suburb around this world, and you will all be connected. And I think that's what it's all about. It's what's in it for me. Lee, you spoke about the what's in it for me. It's about becoming connected to that community, being able to tap into those resources, that wisdom, those ideas, those thoughts. And Rob, you spoke about whether people will fit or not. From my perspective, everybody can fit, and just a question of whether they want to fit or not. There's no hard rules, as we love to say. Rule 1 is there are no rules. Rule 2 is if you want some rules, refer back to rule 1. So there are no rules. Yes, we have guidelines, we have ideas, but so does everybody. And we look for all those inputs, for all those elements, and perhaps that's where the whimsy comes into it to some extent, and the analyticals, like you and I, Rob, start fighting against the lack of boundaries, and the lack of lines and the lack of rules. But I think on that note, I'm going to give that pass back. Trevor?
A flower who plays with whimsy. Boy, you should have seen me in my younger days, Rob. You would never have caught me. But listen, it just fantastic thoughts coming across. And imagine, so a couple of things that we've been talking about in the background is how often does an individual get to be involved in a big, hairy, audacious goal? I was thinking about that, the comment, and that was by Jim Collins he wrote that in Built to Last. I think his byline was Successful Habits of Visionary Companies, published in 2005 with his mate Jerry Porras, I think. And so, how often do you get the chance to be involved in something really big, really global, really completely life-changing? And what is it that is life-changing? What is the simple hook that will get people involved? Well, anyone can come up with a hook. So the hook that we've come up with to begin this project is, a difference maker in every city. And what would happen if we had a difference maker in every city, looking to make the world a better place to live in? What could you springboard off just that little hook? And then, I was going down, once I got into that, the big, hairy, audacious goal, and how many people get a chance to get involved with that, I think it's extremely rare. And I believe what we have here at our fingertips is an opportunity to have this big, hairy, audacious goal that anyone can get involved in. And I think it is such a great, it's a gap for anyone who wants to latch onto something and wants to have an influence, like Rob is already having an influence on us here. Already, you saw he kicked off this session for us as a contributing difference maker to turn around and say, hey, why don't we just go and connect with Elon Musk? and let's make this thing big overnight. Well, that stimulates some thoughts. Now, imagine that happening in, let's say, 1,000 cities, where we've just got a single difference maker connecting to their close ally, Elon Musk, in that particular city, or whatever key influencer that they actually know. We have 1,000 Rob Jacksons who turn around and say, well, look, if I just do this and we can do this, then we've got another great idea that we can springboard. And on top of it, what we talked about last week is that we have objectives here. There are 43,000 target cities that we can just find one difference maker in. So, and that goes further into the 4.3 million cities, towns, and communities that we have at our fingertips, that we know geographically exactly where they are, where we can start with one difference maker in those areas. I mean, the world is our oyster on this. If this is not a big, hairy, audacious goal, then what is? So to me, it's very exciting. And I must tell you, please, 76-year-olds. My mate just sent me a photograph yesterday, a guy I did many comrades and doozies with, 76 years of age. Over the weekend, he was at the National Canoeing Championships, got his medal at 76, out sprinting younger boys in a double canoe with an old rugby playing mate of ours. At 76 years of age, going absolutely flat out. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, what age you are, what your skills level are. The gap here is we are at such an early stage of this initiative that you've given, in fact, I made a note of it, that you've got the opportunity to get in on the ground floor in your city, wherever you are, by just becoming the first person. And what's the investment? Well, we've put a lifetime of investment behind all the resources behind us. So have you, whatever age you are, just all the skills, all your experience, all your resources. What are we asking you to invest here to show your commitment so that we can actually spend time with you in a platform like this and take these discussions further? $1 a month is the starting point. For goodness sake, to get involved in a big, hairy, audacious goal. And then I took that further, and I'm looking at the time here. You just, Ivan, you tell me when you want to stop this little discussion, or anyone want to jump in. I then went back into my library and said, who have I been influenced by? Why am I so influenced with this big, hairy, audacious goal? Obviously, I've been influenced in the library, and my library looks just like what you've seen in the picture in the background here. I started picking out the books, and I went through there. Who's been doing similar things? Well, there's Peter Diamandis, MTP. So let's talk acronyms here. Massively transformative purpose. How often do you get to work on a massively transformative purpose? Well, this really developing difference makers in every city who create meaningful change, positive change in the world, and they're able to see their own ideas for meaningful change in a discussion forum like this. Surely that is a massively transformative purpose that we can still drill down. So it's in the early stages of you being able to get together on that. Then the next one was, so Peter Diamandis, he wrote that in bold, and he talked about this moonshot mindset, and he pointed to Google and their moonshot company, and in that moonshot, in Google's moonshot company, they talk of, don't be afraid to fail, man. Don't worry that other people turn around and say, but you guys are crazy, this thing is so big, you'll never ever do it. You know what? Just get started. Don't bother about failing. The type of people that we're going to be finding here, and there we're talking Elon Musk. Do me a favor. How many times has that boy failed along the way? And look at where he's got you. South African boy, can you talk about 6 degrees of separation? Do me a favor. It's 6 yards of separation. He went to school just up the road from us here. So it's, it's simple enough to actually find these connections if we really want to do that. The next one that I want to talk about is Tom Peters and the pursuit of wow. How do we make this a wow project? Have you ever thought of what could happen if you are connected to a network in 43,000 cities who have the type of creative mind, the IP, the resources that complement you times 43,000? The exponential curve that can come out of those contexts is too exciting. And then I went a little bit further and into minimum viable product. What we don't want to do, and I was just thinking, why minimum viable product? And who wrote about that? That was Eric Ries in 2011 in the Lean Startup, and how it was applied to all of these billion-dollar companies that started coming out on the internet wave in sort of the 2010s, a little bit earlier than that as well. The Facebooks, the Twitters, the TikToks, and now, I talk about those things, but I don't know how to actually make use of them. There are TikTok specialists who can actually take a little 30-second clipping of our discussion that we're having here and turn that into a viral feed that connects to 43,000 people overnight who turn around and say, hey, we want to be in on this thing. Okay, that's the opportunity that we want to grab. And then out of the books came raving fans. And how do you turn people into raving fans? And that was by Ken Blanchard. So all of these books are now spread around here just to simplify. 1, 2, 3 principles that we can actually take out of these to actually add on to the growth experience of this concept of a difference maker in every city. And then this morning, I was discussing those yesterday with Ivan and Lee, and in the background. And then this morning, I thought, what? I've forgotten about one of the best, Purple Cow, how to transform your business by being remarkable. Seth Godin, that Purple Cow is one of the greatest books of all time about actually positioning your brand. So a difference maker in every city. Who are the marketing geniuses that we don't even know that are sitting somewhere in Budapest that will become the difference maker in that particular city that is an absolute brand marketing expert, or a TikTok or Facebook influencer or Twitter, master of the Twitterverse, for goodness sake, who will then start taking this saying, but guys, you're wasting all your time talking here. In 30 seconds, this is what I can do, and this is how I can actually do it. And it spreads like wildfire just with that expert coming on board here to actually share with us. And suddenly we're in a network of 4.3 million people who want to make a positive difference in the world. Man, I'm excited about that. So, but I'm just a humble fly off. I get the ball and then I try and work out what to do. But I'm inspired by this little segment that we've had this morning. And thanks, Rob, for kicking it off, because that's exactly the type of input that we actually want to get from each new difference maker that comes on board. Rob, you want to make a comment?
You muted, Rob. Hit your mute button.
See you next week.
Right, good. Okay, I think on that note, yeah, I think we have. I think it has been inspiring. I love the energy. I love the ideas, and that's what it's all about. So join us, become part of this. Get into the stream, get into the flow, get into the energy that is being developed out of this, and let's make those 6 degrees of separation no longer be separation. Let's make them connection. 6 degrees of connection, and difference makers in every city around the world. So we look forward to you joining us soon on one of these sessions every Wednesday, 8 a.m. South African time. Details are in the description below. Connect with us, hop onto Patreon, patreon.com/wisdoms123, become part of the spark that is going to turn into this wildfire that is going to engulf the world in positive difference making. So hope to see you soon. Have a good week. Chat soon. Cheers now.
What the world needs now is I'm a difference maker.